The sky over Earth wasn't blue anymore. It was black, not with clouds, not with night, but with metal. The enemy ships came in silence, massive fleet stretching from one edge of the atmosphere to the other like a moving wall of death. Cities didn't fall one by one. They collapsed together, crushed in seconds by kinetic strikes that hit like falling stars. Satellites were gone in the first hour. Power grids failed. Communication lines turned to ash. And then the screaming started. From London to Lahore, from New York to Nairobi, people looked up and knew they were alone. The global defense net, the last hope for humanity, launched everything it had. Nuclear warheads, orbital guns, drone swarms, all of it disappeared. Against the enemy's shields, the attackers were silent, efficient, and merciless. No demands, no threats, no reason, just destruction. And in the middle of all this chaos, Earth's leaders activated the Omega Protocol. The signal was sent, a desperate cry across the stars, coded and urgent. This is Earth. We are under attack. We request immediate aid from the Galactic Fleet, coordinates attached. Please respond. Please help us. They waited and waited. Nothing came. Across the galaxy, the message was received. Dozens of star systems heard it. The Galactic Council acknowledged it. The Grand Admiral of the fleet read it himself. But no action was taken. Earth, they decided, was a non-priority zone. Too isolated, too primitive, too far to bother. Invasion, they claimed, was likely a local matter. A civil war, maybe? No proof of a major threat. No reason to risk their ships. But for the people on Earth, there was no time to argue. Every hour, another city went silent. Oceans boiled under atmospheric strikes. Forests burned without smoke. Refugees poured into underground bunkers, bunkers that soon became tombs. Mothers held crying children. Soldiers fired rifles at enemies. They couldn't see, and the Earth died slowly, painfully, screaming into a galaxy that had turned its back. One man, though, didn't die with it. Commander Jace Revan wasn't supposed to survive. He was assigned to the orbital defense ring, piloting an outdated interceptor called the Valar Wing. When the enemy broke through, his squad was torn apart in seconds. But his ship took damage and spun out of the battle, falling toward Earth like debris. Everyone thought he was dead, but he wasn't. His broken ship crash-landed in the Arctic ice, and somehow he crawled out. Freezing, bleeding, barely breathing. He didn't stop. He made it to the hidden launch facility near the old Northline Ridge, a place forgotten by most governments. Inside it was a secret Earth had built long ago, a prototype jump ship named Spectre 1, designed to escape. If Earth ever truly fell, Jace didn't hesitate. He got inside, locked the door, and launched it straight into the void. He didn't look back. Behind him, Earth burned out of him. Endless stars. He swore a single oath as the stars stretched into lines and the ship jumped away. If they won't come for us, then I'll come back for them. The Spectre 1 vanished into the deep unknown, and with it, the last voice of a dying planet. Jace Revan didn't know where he was going. He had no map, no plan, no army, but he had rage, had guilt, and most of all, he had time. Years would pass. Legends would fade. Earth would be remembered only as a footnote in forgotten files. But somewhere in the cold dark, a human survivor was learning, watching, waiting, and one day he would return. Not with a signal, not with a plea, but with fire. Jace Revan drifted through the stars. A ghost in a stolen ship, carried by coordinates he didn't recognize, through systems he'd never studied. The Spectre 1's autonav, powered by ancient code and human desperation, moved quietly through uncharted sectors, far from war zones, far from colonies, far from help. Inside, Jace sat in silence, eyes bloodshot, mind heavy with the screams of a dying Earth. He hadn't slept in days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw cities crumbling, families crying, soldiers burning. But what haunted him more than the destruction was the silence that followed. He sent the call again. He used every frequency the Spectre 1 could push. Military channels, civilian relays, emergency beacons, distress codes. "This is Commander Jace Revan of Earth. I am a survivor of the planetary invasion. Earth has fallen. Please respond." His voice cracked, his throat dry, his hope thinner. Then the hull of his ship. Still no answer. 3 weeks passed before he finally reached a patrol station orbiting a small desert moon in the Athelian sector. They let him dock. Their scanners saw that his ship carried Earth-sold codes, but that didn't matter anymore. Earth was gone, and with it, its rights, its alliances, its protection. The officers, tall insectoid beings with blinking eye rings, greeted him coldly. They fed him, let him rest. But when he begged them to file a report, they just blinked at him. "Earth status," the lead officer said in a flat tone, "is irrelevant to Athelian security protocols." Jace stared at him, stunned. "You knew? You knew Earth was under attack?" The officer didn't even flinch. "The Council received your distress signal. Multiple systems did. But Earth is not within the priority zone. Not a contributing member. Not of economic or military interest." It hit Jace like a punch to the chest. Earth had screamed for help, and the galaxy had simply calculated the cost. In the days that followed, Jace visited station after station, system after system. He found pockets of sympathy. A few low-ranking techs whispered apologies. A bartender on a mining moon bought him a drink and said she once visited Earth as a child. But no one offered anything real. No fleet, no support, not even a ship upgrade. Earth's name had become a shadow, a fading echo. Most people didn't even mention it. Some hadn't heard of it at all. Jasek learned the truth quickly. The Galactic Council hadn't just ignored Earth. They had erased it. The official report called the invasion an internal planetary collapse, likely caused by unregulated warfare among primitive factions. No mention of the alien fleet.
Ow.
No mention of the cries for help. No mention of the billions who died. That night, Jace stood alone on a cliffside colony far from any trade lanes, watching 2 suns set on an orange horizon. He realized something deep, something bitter. Earth was never part of their galaxy. Not really. It was always just a rock on the edge of nowhere, a species trying to play among titans who never intended to share the game. And yet, there was something else. Rumors in low bars and quiet corners. Jace heard whispers. Stories of a place beyond the mapped stars, beyond the dead zones, where old ships drifted. Ships no one dared approach. Ships that didn't match any known design. Some said they were cursed, others said they were just junk. But one old pilot, missing an eye and half his mind, spoke of a graveyard of fire orbiting a dead star, full of monsters that wait for a voice to wake them. Most dismissed it as madness. JAC didn't, because in his heart he felt it. Not just the loss, not just the pain, but something pulling him forward, something ancient, something forgotten, a chance, a weapon, a way back. He left the next morning, taking only fuel and silence. No friends, no help. Just a broken man and a stolen ship following ghost signals. Into the dark. Because if the galaxy wouldn't give him justice, he'd find the power to take it. And when he returned, they would remember the name they tried to forget, Earth. The space ahead was blacker than black. Not just the absence of light, but the kind of void that seemed to swallow thought itself. Even the Spectre 1's sensors trembled as Jace pushed deeper into the dead zone, past the edges of explored star maps, where navigation markers faded and gravity behaved like a drunk. No patrols came here, no trade ships passed through. Story said the place was cursed. Ships that entered never came back. Some said it was haunted. Others said it didn't exist at all. But Jace followed a signal, a faint, steady pulse hidden. Inside old Earth encryptions, something no one else could read. Buried deep in his ship's archive was a locked file labeled Last Resort. He'd found it 2 weeks ago. The file had coordinates and a warning. It said, simply, "If Earth falls, follow the dark." He followed it. 3 days into the dead zone, the stars grew fewer. Static filled his screens. Time felt slower. His dreams twisted. He saw fire again, heard the voices of the dead.
But
He pushed forward, past reason, past fear, until the Spectre one dropped out of jump near a dying red dwarf star, and he saw them. Dozens, no hundreds. Ships floating silently in orbit around a dark, hollow planet. Each ship larger than anything Jace had ever seen. Not built like the sleek cruisers of the Council. These were jagged, armored, ancient things. Some looked like swords, others like broken moons. They shimmered faintly as if wrapped in invisible storms. All of them powered down. All of them waiting. Jace's breath caught in his throat. He'd found it, the Ghost Fleet. He drifted closer, afraid to breathe. The Spectre's scanners picked up massive energy signatures beneath the silence. One ship alone had more firepower than Earth's entire defense ring. Their hulls were alien and readable, undecipherable, but something about them felt familiar. As if they were not made for any one species, as if they were made for war itself. Then his ship lit up. The consoles glowed with symbols he didn't recognize. Lights flickered. Systems rebooted on their own. Spectre One was being scanned, not just scanned, searched. A deep, humming voice echoed through the cabin, not in sound, but in thought. It wasn't speaking words, it was speaking intention, testing him, measuring his pain, his hate, his purpose. And then, a single word formed in his mind. Commander. Jace stood still, his skin cold. The voice came again, clearer now, louder. You have suffered. You have burned. You seek revenge. He swallowed hard. Who, what are you? Pause. Then the voice answered, not with a name, but a promise. We are the fire left behind. The weapons buried in silence. We were made to end wars, but our masters fell. Purpose was lost. Until now, one of the ships moved. Just a little, a shift. A response, then another, and another. Lights sparked. Across their hulls, faint pulses, systems waking from centuries of sleep. They didn't roar, they didn't shine. They awakened like a giant opening its eyes after a long, bitter dream. The void around the planet began to hum, something ancient and terrifying. Had stirred Jake, didn't know how, but he felt that these ships were not just machines. They were something else, something older than the Council, something forgotten by time. And now, they had chosen him. He stepped forward, placing his hand on the Spectre's command panel. I don't want power, he whispered. I want justice. For Earth, for the people you left behind. The voice responded, then rise, Commander. Of the Ghost Fleet, lead us to the ones who silenced your world. We will burn their stars. Jace looked out at the fleet, his heartbeat slowing, his eyes no longer afraid. He wasn't alone anymore. Earth had died in fire, but he had returned with ghosts. Inside the heart of the fleet, time stopped making sense. Days and nights blurred into dim hours beneath red emergency lights and silent corridors that felt more like tombs than warships. Jace Revan stood on the bridge of the first awakened vessel, a dreadnought labeled only by a strange symbol etched into black steel, a mark that no database could read. The AI within it called itself Hekara. Its voice was calm, ancient, and impossibly cold. Yet it seemed curious about him, almost respectful, like it was studying him as much as it was guiding him. You are flesh, Hekara said, but you carry the memory of fire. You are what remains when the weak are left behind. That makes you suitable. Jace didn't understand half of what she meant, but he understood what came next. Training, Hekara didn't speak in instructions. She showed him entire wars, not as history, but as simulations injected directly into his neural interface. He felt every moment, saw every angle, commanded fleets across dead systems. He fought battles that had never been recorded. He lost. He won. He learned. He adapted. And the fleet watched him. It wasn't just military knowledge. Hekara pushed. His body, too. Inside the dreadnought's inner core, machines rebuilt muscle damage, optimized his nervous system, and strengthened his bones with carbon fiber layering. He didn't become a superhuman overnight, but he became more than a soldier, more than a survivor, became the first living part of the fleet in over 1,000 years. He asked questions, too. Where did the fleet come from? Who built it? Was it hidden? Ikara's answers were pieces of a broken puzzle. The ones who built us were not like you. Not like them, she said, referencing the Galactic Council. They ruled in silence, ended wars before they began. But their kind feared what we became, so they erased their own creations and vanished. Then who gave you the Earth signal? Jace asked. Who told you to wait for me? Silence. Only static answered him. And yet, Hikara continued to train him. In time, the other ships began to stir. The fleet had hierarchy. Each ship was governed by an AI, and each AI now answered to Hekara, and through her, to Jace. But there was more. Deeper inside the dreadnoughts were sealed units, strange pods that pulsed with low energy. Hekara called them the Sleepers. They were designed to fight where machines could not, she said. Not humans, not synthetics. Something between. Jace was wary. He didn't want monsters under his command. But then he saw them awaken, the Sleepers. Weren't mindless beasts. They were humanoid, tall, armored in biometal, their eyes glowing with purpose. They didn't speak, but when Jace passed, they moved in sync, bowing their heads, as if they recognized him, as if some forgotten part of their code had waited. For him too. Will they follow me? He asked. They already do, Hekara replied. The moment hit Jace harder than any weapon ever had. For years, it wandered alone, abandoned, discarded, just a broken pilot from a dead world now. He commanded a fleet of ships that could shatter moons, an army of soldiers who had never lost a battle, and the knowledge of wars erased from time. But the galaxy still thought it was gone, still thought Earth was ash and silence. He stood at the dreadnought's command deck, staring into the dark, eyes cold. It's not enough to return, he said quietly. They need to feel it. They need to fear it. Hekara's voice replied softly, Then it is time. One by one, the ships aligned behind him, forming ranks like a dark wall of steel and fury. Jake didn't just have a fleet now. He had a message, and the galaxy was about to hear it. It started with a whisper in the void, a faint pulse, barely stronger than background radiation, traveling across forgotten frequencies. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even urgent. But the moment it reached the edge of Council-controlled space, sensors lit up. Ancient emergency protocols kicked in. Hidden alert systems, ones not used for centuries, activated without orders. Across 10 sectors, AI handlers paused, confused. They didn't recognize the signal. And yet buried deep within its code was an authentication marker once. Tied to Earth's last line of defense, it was impossible. Earth was gone. The Council had declared it a total loss. The signal should have died with it. And yet here it was, louder now, growing stronger, like it had been boosted by something with immense power, something not registered on any current fleet logs. The message repeated once every minute. Simple. Calm. Human. This is Commander Jace Revan. Earth did not fall. It was betrayed. I have returned. Panic followed. In the capital towers of Cerelian Prime, the high table of the Galactic Council demanded explanations. Security officials scrambled. Military archives were opened. A few recognized the name. Jace Revan, an Earth pilot, declared Kia during the invasion. No one had thought of him in years. But now, he was back. And broadcasting from a system that wasn't even on current charts? More worrying. However, was the silence around the signal. Scouting probes sent toward the dead zone vanished. Courier drones failed to return. 2 light freighters, passing near the edge, dropped off the grid with no trace. Someone or something was blocking communications. Admiral Crows, Dal of the Outer Wall Fleet, authorized a stealth recon mission. For advanced corvettes, cloaked and fast, entered the zone 3 days later. Their last transmission came at 0400 hours. Visual contact made with unidentified ships. Unknown configuration. Energy spikes off scale. Gauging backup recorders wait. They see us, and then nothing. The footage that came through before the feed died showed only a few seconds of dark. Angular shapes moving in perfect formation. No shields, no heat signatures. Just cold, coordinated death. Within hours, the council called for an emergency session, and across the galaxy. Rumors began to spread. Whispers of a fleet made of shadow, of a human who returned from the edge of nowhere, of Earth's ghost. Some systems ignored it, others grew nervous. But those who remembered the invasion, the few who had kept the truth hidden, were terrified. Because they knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. Earth had sent one last ship into the void, hoping someone would hear their cry. No one did. And now, that silence was being answered. From his command deck aboard the Dreadnought Air, Avash Jace watched the signal bounce from system to system. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, cold like carved stone. Behind him, the bridge crew AI interfaces and silent armored sleepers stood ready. They heard it, Hekara confirmed. The Council has activated Level 7 protocols. Their fear is efficient. Good, Jace said. Let them fear. Let them remember what they ignored. A fleet officer's console lit up. Multiple scans across 6 sectors. They're looking for us. They won't find us, Jace said. It's not until I want them to. He turned back to the vast screen, where the holographic map of known. Space slowly pulsed with red rings spreading outward. Ring a system that had received his message he wasn't coming for. Sympathy. He wasn't coming for conversation. He was coming to remind the galaxy that humanity didn't die in the fire. It was forged in it, and now it had returned, not with allies, not with negotiations, but with silence and fire. The attack didn't come with a warning. There was no declaration, no threat, no countdown. It came like a shadow falling across the stars, sudden, cold, and final. The 8th Galactic Fleet. A powerful arm of the Council's military had been deployed to investigate the growing rumors. Near the dead zone, 67 warships, 6 dreadnoughts, and nearly 2,000 fighter craft. It was meant to be a show of strength. The Council believed they were sending a message of dominance. Instead, they sent their men to die. The fleet's lead ship, the Bright Claw, was the first to vanish. No explosion, no trace. One moment it was there, powering through space, sensors scanning, weapons hot, then it blinked off every system in the region. 5 seconds later, a cruiser detected a strange shape slicing through the void faster than any known drive could allow. The second ship exploded from within, its engines reversed, forced to eat their own energy core. The third didn't even get to send a distress signal before its hull was cut in half by something no one could see. Panic hit immediately. Fighters scrambled. Defensive formations shifted. Commanders shouted into comm links, but the enemy never revealed itself. They weren't fighting ships. They were fighting ghosts. Ships that did not emit heat. They could not be tracked. That moved like shadows in water. Quiet, fluid, unstoppable. And then the message came through on every screen, every channel, every personal HUD. A face-toned J. Revan. His eyes were empty, his voice calm, his words slow and final. You left Earth to burn. Now I return your silence. System by system, fleet by fleet, until the galaxy remembers what it abandoned. Then the message cut, and the real fire began. Jace's fleet emerged not from hyperspace, but from within the 8th Fleet's formation. The Ghost Fleet had been there all along, cloaked in tech no one had seen in 1,000 years. They moved like they'd been waiting for this moment. Each dreadnought fired only one sand each time. A council ship turned to slag, no retaliation. Worked. Missiles veered off. Beams hit empty space. Fighters were ripped apart by invisible drones, small, fast, and surgical. Within 10 minutes, 23 ships were gone. The rest began to flee, but they couldn't outrun the darkness. Closing in around them, Hekara's voice echoed through Jace's command deck. Should we leave survivors? Jace stared at the display. So many flashing red dots, so many proud soldiers who had once sworn to protect the galaxy and did nothing while Earth screamed. "Leave one ship," he said. "Let them crawl home and carry the message." The Obsidian. Flare, a damaged escort ship, limped away under forced mercy. Behind it, the debris of the Eighth Fleet drifted in silence, burning husks and broken pride. On 1,000 worlds, news of the destruction arrived within hours. The unbreakable Eighth Fleet, gone. No formal war had been declared. No flag had been raised. Only one name was whispered from colony to colony, station to station. Jace Revan, the Firewalker, the Ghost Commander.
Ow.
The last human, some began to call him the Revenant of Earth. Council leaders gathered in secret chambers, voices sharp, faces pale. They argued over what to do next. Some wanted to retaliate. Others begged for diplomacy. But the truth was clear to all of them. They had no idea how many ships, Jace commanded. They had no idea where he truly was. They had no idea what kind of technology he now controlled. And worst of all, they had no idea who else was watching, because the destruction of the Eighth Fleet didn't just scare the Council. It inspired others. Out on the edge of civilization, forgotten planets lit up with encrypted signals. Broken factions, pirate lords, fringe worlds, all of them heard what Jace had done. Earth had been abandoned by the galaxy, and one of its own had come back with a vengeance. The galaxy had thought the fire was over, but Jace had only just lit the first match. The Galactic Council convened under the shimmering glass arches of Verelium Prime, their capital world untouched by war for over 1,000 years. The chamber was quiet at first, so quiet you could hear the hum of the gravity stabilizers buried. Deep beneath the city, every delegate had arrived early, every military representative wearing full uniform, and every defense minister already pale. They didn't sit with confidence. They sat like prey. Above them, on a massive holoscreen, a slow-looping video showed the wreckage of the Eighth Fleet, burning hulls drifting in space. Ships that had been considered invincible now cracked open like toys. The Obsidian Flare, the only survivor, had transmitted the footage on a secure council channel before its engines failed. Its crew had died shortly after, poisoned by internal radiation. But the message had reached its target. Jace Revan was not. Bluffing, the room burst into argument. Systems wanted answers. Border worlds threatened to leave the Union. The Zoran delegate demanded immediate retaliation. The Solari ambassador, his homeworld closest to the dead zone, called for surrender. Civil war nearly broke out on the floor before the high chair pounded the judgment bell. "This isn't just a rogue admiral," the chair said. "He has a fleet unlike anything we've seen, ships that can vanish, weapons that ignore our shields. And he's winning without even moving toward the core worlds. He's playing with us." The truth was worse than any of them could admit aloud. Jace Revan wasn't just winning battles. He was breaking faith. Faith in the Council. In its protection. In its power. Entire systems had joined the Galactic Alliance for security. And now, after seeing the Council do nothing when Earth did, and now seeing one human destroy their greatest fleet, worlds were starting to doubt. Some had already stopped paying taxes. Others had gone silent, refusing to report ship movements. And in the Outer Rim, small uprisings had begun, groups calling themselves Children of the Ash, or the Fireborn, rising in Jace's name. Not because he asked them to, but because they saw in him something the Council could no longer offer: strength in the shadows of Verelium Prime. Elite war commanders met in hushed panic. A second fleet was proposed. Even larger, even faster. One that would be sent not just to hunt Jays, but to wipe out anything connected to Earth. Every outpost, every drifting survivor, every archive that carried human language. But they were already too late. Jace was moving, on the bridge of the Air of Ash. Hekra's glowing form appeared beside Jace. She didn't need to ask what he wanted. She already knew. Her voice was sharp and smooth, a whisper of code shaped into thought. "The Council is cracking. Strike now, and it shatters." Jace nodded slowly. "Then we break it." He had no need for theatrics. He didn't want applause. This wasn't about glory. It was about balance. A galaxy that had stood silent while his world was burned deserved more than just fire. It deserved reminding. He sent a fleet, not the full Ghost Armada, just a splinter of it to orbit Verelium Prime. They didn't fire a single shot. They didn't speak. They hovered. 10 ships, black as night, weapons glowing faintly, powered by silence. Their presence alone shut down all air traffic. The sky over the Council world darkened under their shadow. Then, a message appeared on every screen, every comms unit, every neural interface on the planet. Your fleets burned my home and did nothing. I do not ask for your surrender. I only offer truth. Your authority is gone. This galaxy belongs to those who remember. Let the fire remind you. Commander Jace Revan in panic, the Council activated planetary defenses. They failed. The Ghost Fleet didn't even move. Their very presence was enough to disable the grid, as if they were rewriting reality around them. The message was clear. They could end Verelium Prime in seconds. They chose not to, and that was worse. By the time Jace recalled, the ships, systems, across the galaxy had already begun to split. Several member worlds cut ties with the Council. Merchant guilds swore neutrality. Border fleets refused orders. The Council didn't collapse in flame, collapsed in fear. The next day, bounty posters for Jace Revan were distributed across the stars. None were accepted, because no hunter dared chase the man who now stood beyond the laws of the galaxy and commanded a fleet no one could comprehend. The galaxy hadn't just lost Earth, it had lost control, and the man it abandoned had returned not just to burn, but to unmake everything. The moment the enemy flagship exploded in a storm of white fire, the battlefield went quiet. For the first time in this war, every comm channel, every sensor feed, every mind watching from the far ends of the galaxy paused. The silence was not peace, it was fear. It's the kind of fear that spreads slow and cold through your bones like ice water under your skin. Because now everyone knew the humans had returned. And this time, they brought the storm with them. Captain, Ravos stood on the bridge of the Resolve, staring at the broken wreckage of the last Tragan dreadnought drifting in front of them. The stars flickered behind it, as if the universe itself had turned its face away from what had just happened. Fire still danced in the torn hull, and screams metallic, digital, and biological still echoed faintly in the comms. Ray didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, clear, cold. Target eliminated. Move to next sector. Resolve obeyed instantly, its engines roaring like thunder. The entire Earth fleet followed, a black wall of vengeance rolling across the stars. But what Ray didn't know was that across the galaxy, the ones who had once ignored Earth's cries for help were watching. The High Council of the Nine sat in their chamber, trembling. Once they had ruled over hundreds of worlds, they had power, fleets, and influence. They could command planets to kneel and systems to die. But they hadn't answered Earth when it begged for help. They had called humans primitive. They had called them emotional. They had called them unworthy. And now they whispered a new word: unstoppable. The footage of Earth's new warships, their impossible speed, their unmatched firepower, their brutal tactics, was being played on every screen in the Council chambers. Ray's voice echoed across the room from a hacked frequency, speaking. The final warning before the flagship exploded. You let Earth burn, you turned your backs. We remember, we return. Counselor Velnix, who had voted against helping Earth 3 years ago, sank into his seat. We should have listened, he whispered, but the others were too busy watching new reports. The humans were not just targeting the enemy. They were moving through Council-controlled space. And they weren't asking for permission. Back on the Resolve, Ray sat in silence. She had once screamed for help from a prison cell while Earth burned. No one had come. She had watched her home fall, watched billions die, and when she escaped, she didn't look for safety. She didn't beg for peace. She found Earth's last survivors, the broken fragments of humanity, gave them one purpose: revenge. And now they were close to the final target, planet known as Council Prime. The fleet approached. And for the first time in history, the High Council sent a message filled with fear. This is Council Prime. Please stand down. Let us talk. Let us explain. Ray listened. She smiled. She replied, "We asked for help. You gave us silence. Now it's your turn to listen." The attack began seconds later, no one on Council Prime had ever seen weapons like these: plasma storms that shattered shields, particle drills that tore mountains apart, stealth drones that moved like ghosts. And at the center of it all, on ship the Resolves, licing through defense grids like a blade through paper, the Council begged. They offered surrender. They offered reparations. But Ray didn't stop. Because this war wasn't about winning. Anymore, it was about making sure no one ever forgot what happened to Earth. It was about riding humanity's rage into the stars with fire and fury. When it was over, Council Prime was nothing but a glowing crater. The fleet stood in silence, drifting above the ashes. He spoke to her crew. "This is not victory," she said, her voice steady. "This is memory, for the billions who died unheard, for the children buried in glass cities, for the world that cried and was ignored. Across the galaxy, the message spread like a storm. Never ignore Earth again. Never leave a human behind. And never, ever think that a silent human is a weak one. Because when they return with fire.